Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Lethbridge-Stewart clan as they protect the Earth and arrive at episode 411. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Raring to go.
Raring to go.
Raring to go.
Don't know if that's a good thing or not. Did you guys have a good week?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you do?
I did all kinds of stuff.
Okay, so break it down for us.
I knocked several things off my to-watch list and finished them, more importantly, which is what I'm very happy about. So, to start with, Mel and I finished Voyager. Done with...
you finally watched Voyager?
Finally watched Voyager, all of it in its entirety, all 7 seasons. And now that I have finished it, I can say that my initial impression was pretty accurate. That, the show gets better, but it's not rife with problems. And then we actually watched Nemesis tonight. So we're now done with all of the movies. Mel had not seen that one. So. What else did we do? We got tickets to the Amazon Prime premiere of Aquaman. I got to go early.
How was it?
It was cool.
Cool seeing it early, or the movie was cool?
Both. Both. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It is absolutely bonkers. Will described it as Star Wars underwater. And he's not wrong. It's kind of got that epic... realistically, we all love Star Wars. But when you break it down, Star Wars it's not a very good movie. We just love Star Wars. I'm being honest.
It's the hero's tale.
Aquaman's no different. But it's just that spectacle. And you're like, okay, cool. And then we finished, almost, our Rocky marathon. There was one other film that we knocked out, and I don't remember what it was. So,
We watched The Incredibles 2. And I really liked it. I liked it a lot. Almost at least as much as the first one.
Really?
Yeah, because we rewatched it a couple weeks ago. And it wasn't quite as great as I remembered it being. But maybe because we have a little one now, the sequel was even better. Because so much of my enjoyment of it was watching the dad doing the dad stuff more than the mom being the superhero. I really liked that. And then we watched the Prep and Landing specials, which we hadn't actually watched before.
We still haven't watched those this year. I can't
really
believe
enjoyed them.
They're so cute.
You haven't seen them?
I hadn't seen them.
Oh. Did you watch the little short film?
Yeah.
So you saw 3.
Yes.
We watched, I watched a Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yay!
On the anniversary of its release. That was kind of serendipitous. I didn't plan that, but it just happened to fall on the same day that I watched it. And then I didn't find this out until today, but last night we watched A Muppet Family Christmas, because that's our family thing. One of the things we watch, Prep and Landing, a couple other ones, and Charlie Brown Christmas, but we always watch a Muppet Family Christmas every year. And Mason suggested we watch it last night, so we put it in, and I found out today that yesterday was the anniversary of the release date. So it's like, well, that's kind of cool.
Did you do anything else, Glenn?
No, I don't believe that I did. Should we move on to news?
Let's move on to news. Only one little bit of news this week. The Big Finish has announced Riversong Series 6, the final chapter.
Alex Kingston's done, huh? I've done enough.
If you believe the title.
I've run my 6-season contract. I'm done.
Yeah, like Star Trek 6, The Final Frontier.
Yeah. But
or
in
5.
In this box set, you're going back to the beginning. So they are encountering the original TARDIS team with Jamie Glover as the role of Ian Chesterton, Gemma Powell as Barbara Wright, and Susan, played by Claudia Grant. So these are the An Adventure in Space and Time cast that River is going to meet.
Okay. That makes much more sense, because I saw that young woman standing next to Alex Kingston, and I read just enough of the article to see Susan and look at that woman and go, what? But I didn't investigate any further, so that makes more sense to me now. That's not.
So no word of David Bradley showing up in it, though. Everyone but the Doctor. That's it for news.
Cool. Should we move on to feedback?
No, because there's no feedback this week.
What if people wanted to send us feedback?
They could send it directly to feedback@travelingthevortex.com, or if you're on our website, click on the Send Us Feedback tab, and it will fill out that form, and it will send it directly to us.
Cool. Let's move on to our reviews. We'll start with Lethbridge-Stewart, Lineage.
So I have a big synopsis, and I also have individual stories, so let's just start with the individual stories. The Soothsayer by Richard Dennick. William Stewart and Mary Lethbridge discover that a mysterious stranger is intent on stopping their wedding and diverting the course of history at any cost.
It's a good setup for a book like this, I think. It's when I first started reading it, I kind of thought, oh, wait a minute, does every Lethbridge or Stewart have some sort of weird like attraction to alien or metaphysical, or I mean, is this just like a thing that goes through the line? I sort of thought, I'm not sure what I think of that. It was a cool story. It was a cool setup to get this started and showed the importance of the lineage. I think that's the thing, is it really keystones the fact that the line is important. But I had this kind of in the back of my head, like, oh, I don't want all of these to be these big supernatural epic fighting alien stories, or that just seemed a little weird. It seemed a little off. It seemed like forced, maybe, is the thing. But I enjoyed it, and I thought Dennick did a good job. Did you guys read the foreword that he wrote about how he had found out that he's actually related to Lethbridge's? So I thought that was kind of cool. But it's a neat setup for this story. Not a lot goes on. She meets some freaky guy, and I got the impression we were supposed to it was alluding to someone we should have maybe suspected it was or knew, but maybe not. I didn't know if I was missing something by maybe there was a reference to this person, but maybe not.
I didn't pick that up.
Okay,
if there was supposed to be,
and it wasn't like it overtly said it. Just it felt that way to me.
Yeah. I thought this was a pretty good setup for how the story, or to do a story like, or a book like this, like you said. I had the same concerns of, oh, no, there's going to be a supernatural element to every single one of these stories, or an alien aspect. And I knew from the get-go that if that was the case, I was not going to like it. But so I guess as we step through the stories, we'll reveal what we thought of what happens.
Yeah, very similar thoughts on my end. Quite surprised, I don't know why, but that we would go that far back into the lineage and show how the Lethbridge and the Stewarts got together. I was like, oh, okay. And then the supernatural started, and my initial reaction was, I don't know if I'm happy with this, because in a weird way, it would cheapen the Brigadier. That if the whole family's been fighting aliens,
right? He's just
he's just another guy, you know,
another person on a very long line.
But it was done with enough kid gloves in a way that it was like, okay, that's a little different touch to it. But it was mainly just, as a prologue, it was a setup for things to come.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the Bone Merchants. On the blood-soaked battlefield of Waterloo, Fergus Lethbridge-Stewart is a man of integrity and reason, not given to sharing the superstitions of his men until he witnesses unearthly lights and the screams of the dead.
So then I got to this one and I went, oh, we are going to have a supernatural element to all these. And so then I kind of thought, well, I'll just kind of resolve myself to it because of the fact that this is, it's the Lethbridge-Stewart series. This is a series that we're used to dealing with alien threats, and we're used to dealing with supernatural elements. We're used to dealing with this kind of stuff. So maybe this is some sort of like connection to the line. This is why Lethbridge-Stewart ended up being in the position that he was. It wasn't so much just the cards fell into the right place. There's some sort of metaphysical attachment to him in order to be, as I think one of the stories alluded to, always be the protectors of the of the earth. But so I kind of resolved myself to this. I liked this story too. I thought it was interesting that Fergus and Connell had sort of become strange friends. It wasn't like they were really close and tight and buddy. but they had served together for so long that you could tell there was a comfort among them. Just a really kind of neat bond and friendship that was seemed very surface until the end when he dies, and we find out that he actually named his son after one of them. But the conversation about believing in religion and God and that kind of stuff, I thought was kind of a neat little touch in there. The soldier that stole the teeth, that got a little weird, and then the wisp that kept following him, and he thought because he stole the teeth, and did it imply that the lighter was the flint was what was causing the wisp, and not the fact that he'd stole the teeth?
That's the impression I got too.
But we didn't really get a good explanation of what the heck the wisp was and what its connection to the flint was.
So because I didn't want it to be supernatural, I assumed it wasn't. Since we never got an answer. I said, so they teased us with the idea of possibility of having supernatural aspect or alien aspect to it and didn't commit to it, so it wasn't there.
So what did Fergus see? Because Fergus saw it. Now, if it had just been the kid that had seen it, then I wouldn't have had so much of an issue with it, because I would have thought, okay, well, it's obviously in this guy's head. But both Connell Connell doesn't necessarily admit that he sees it. Oh, well, I guess they do, because when they chase him, when it chases him, they run after it. And I think Connell makes a comment about it.
A reference in there somewhere that made me think that it was just some weird gaseous anomaly.
Okay.
That some whatever weird, there was some weird gas that was on the battlefield that was being drawn up. Because
every time he light the flint?
Yeah.
Then why did it chase him?
Because he had it lit. Didn't he have the lighter with him the whole time?
Yeah, I guess the kid had the lighter with him, didn't he?
It was being drawn to the flame.
Oh, all right.
That's my scientific rationale.
But it's also a good way to...
It works to make you think that there's going to be supernatural.
You have to think, if the Lethbridges and the Stewarts had this weird connection to strange things happening to them, that would have been passed down through. But that makes a good point that maybe it was a wisp, maybe it was just gas, and they obviously would have explained it off as a unusual gas that was being put off. Yeah. And so nobody would have probably thought anything about it. But then again, when you're telling that story to your kids, you're going to embellish that a bit. You think that would pass down. And you think at some point the Brigadier would say, my great-great-great-grandfather encountered a wisp, or thought he encountered a wisp, or supposedly encountered. But I mean, I know you can't, when you're world building, you can't put it all in there.
And knowing the Lethbridge-Stewarts, I would think that the retelling of the story is more about Connell, or however you say his name.
I go with Connell. So
Connell, more about Connell on how this is what happened when one of your namesakes, passed away.
Yeah,
how he died, and not so much the weird.
He was stabbed by a near deserter thief
who was seeing things on the field, and even Fergus might have just written it off as I was seeing things too.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, because the problem is that the last encounter, because he pulls the...
It makes it come up because he knows it's a tender, yeah.
When the spirit appeared, Fergus threw himself down on the ground. The sickly green mist was directly between Fiennes and himself. The younger soldier fired his musket at the spirit as he surely would. The bullet passed through easily to where Fergus was standing, but the shot was never fired. And then he chases him. He's gone off the cliff, etc. And he comes back to Connell's body. The green mist hung there still, but slowly fading. By the time he had arrived, the mist was gone entirely. Fergus gave in to the thought that had been nagging him. He opened his palm and looked at the flint blocks James had thrown to him. It was still unopened. He had not had a chance to light the cigar. So the mist shows up at the end without the benefit of the thing. And it's like, well, okay, now all of a sudden we're back to a supernatural element to it.
Line, yeah.
Which I liked the story up until that part, because now we've got the aha moment, but now we've been given an aha moment to a mystery that you didn't solve.
Yeah.
Right.
And so now I feel unsatisfied.
And I guess maybe on the base level of it, it was a good story. And maybe we shouldn't
a good story.
Maybe we shouldn't be dissecting the fact that, we kind of feel like the supernatural element does or doesn't need to be there. Yeah, exactly. So.
As I said, I think the point of the story is picking up the name Connell.
Yeah.
Yes, because apparently I just have a mental block of how to pronounce that.
Next.
As the Sun Falls. Young idealistic teacher Percy Lethbridge was born into a well-regarded and much-honored family, but soon he learns the true horror that comes with failing the family name.
Then I got to this one and I thought, oh man, what happened to the supernatural element? I'm sure missing it now. I don't know what to say about this one other than I got to this one and I thought, if this is what this whole book is, no thanks.
I struggled with it too, but I appreciated the fact that there was no even attempt at supernatural to it. There's a small maybe connecting element with the fact that he
raged out and smashed the kid with a desk, and this guy obviously wasn't.
Had anger issues.
Yeah, well, he did, but I mean, and you certainly do get bouts of adrenaline and strange. But he basically blacked out and smashed the kid with a desk.
Yeah.
Out of his rage. Mm-hmm. The thing that I didn't get about this one is this one felt more open-ended than anything. All the other ones kind of felt like, well, with the Soothsayer's an unfair assessment because it does wrap up at the end of the book. But you know, this even though we get left with the mystery of what was the wisp or the spirit, this one. That one actually had kind of, you know, a narrative of point A to point B. This one just kind of backwards told us the story of what happened to Percy and how he was dishonored, and then it was just a tragic story.
It definitely was just a tragic story.
And unfortunately, it was not his fault, but, I mean, we ended up being disowned by his father, and it just, it was...
But... he wasn't.
Well,
that's
he thought he was.
That's what's
by
tragic
his father.
about it. Is the guy who was supposedly his friend who conned him out of the money, and then he winds up killing himself 2 weeks later because he thinks that his father doesn't love him.
Right, and his father had. Yeah, there was.
That was
deceived.
Such a poignant moment.
It certainly was, but overall, I just thought this story could have been left out of this because, I mean, Percy's just a great uncle. At this point,
right?
He's not even on the Stewart line. He's not even on the Lethbridge-Stewart line. He's Mary's related to Mary somehow. So
yeah,
I mean, obviously they're still related, but he wasn't. He was just a Lethbridge. So not to put down the importance of that because I think it's good to kind of go outside of the main line, but main lineage of this. But this one felt a bit out of place and. And if I had to edit the book and edit something out, and obviously they didn't need to because it was a very good length and it paced well. This would have been the one that I would have taken out, but it wasn't needed to take out. So,
I think I disagree. I think this one
sets up the maths connections.
Well, I think it's important for several things. I think one, the idea that the Lethbridge-Stewarts have always been defending the kingdom. It's kind of challenged by this one. That no, not all of them have been. There have been normal guys. In fact, there have been a couple of, you know, dark chapters, black sheep, if you will, which it's kind of daring to say that because, you know, obviously the Brig's never going to tell us this story.
Oh, no, absolutely
He's never going to bring it up. And so it's kind of refreshing almost to learn that, yes, even the great Lethbridge-Stewart has a skeleton in the closet. Okay. Was it necessary? No, but it was just an added layer to the onion.
It gives a little bit of flavor to the book. I'll give you that.
It also, in a way, and this is totally me retconning, makes it, in my mind, plausible for all of these supernatural events to going on with the idea that the great intelligence has become so entwined throughout Lethbridge-Stewart's life that perhaps he's influencing things throughout the whole line.
I sort of tried to go there with my rationale for that.
And this is one of the success stories that you know, he was able to, that dark rage that came over him and he crushed the kid was where he finally.
Well, I hadn't thought of that though, too. Yeah.
So, you know, okay, that worked for me to kind of. Now again, I'm reading way more into it than what's on the written page.
I like your headcanon there. That's not bad. Certainly makes the story work for me more if I were to accept that. So,
I mean, his name was Percival, so obviously he was doomed to failure.
Now, All right, next.
Paperman. No, wait, sorry.
See, I don't have that one.
No, wait, yeah, Paperman. 13-year-old Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart and his mother seem to have moved on from their past.
Wait, are we going to mention that we skipped one?
Oh, there's two there.
You're right. We skipped two. Yeah.
What's past this prologue and the note.
And just for our listeners, we're skipping past these because these were two stories that were released on their own at the beginning of the year that we have already reviewed.
Yes.
If you want to listen to those, you can go back to some of our January shows, and we actually reviewed them back then. So we weren't going to touch on them again.
Right.
Unless tomorrow Andy says, well, you should have read it because we made some additions and changes.
In which case, Andy, I did read them, and I didn't notice anything different.
But they were good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were good the first and second time around.
Yes. So, Paperman.
What happened? I hate to be the guy. The War Romance is the next one I have after What's Past is Prologue.
That is not on my list.
What was the War Romance? I can't remember that one.
By Harry Draper?
Yeah.
I wonder if this is the same one. I think this is the same one.
I wonder maybe if they just title changed.
13-year-old Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart and his mother seem to have moved on from their past, only to be haunted by their future.
Okay.
Yes, maybe.
With the postman?
Yes.
I think it's the same one. I think it's just the Goodreads article I found has a different title for it.
Well, to be fair, we got a review copy of this, which would have come before this was actually released, so there could have been a change made before publication. So,
but this is the one where his friend Raymond, and he's obsessed with the Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I'm on the same page, even if it's not the same title.
I did like the fact that it ties the Rickenbach Falls into especially James's predicament as well as the thing that happens between him and Ray. But go ahead and read or did you read the?
I did that.
Oh, okay. That was kind of cool. I had never paralleled those two the way that this story did, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Not until it came up, and then it was like a thunderclap of
James struggling with his own Moriarty, and then Alistair sort of mirroring that, but it was obviously that this was different in this situation. Kind of Alistair was sort of the Moriarty in this situation, but not purposefully. This is another one this was one of my least favorite stories in this book. This is where we're after reading the one with Percival, and then this one I kind of thought, okay, this is where this book is going, and I kind of was okay with that. I think my thing about this one is it's written well and it's interesting, and I like the fact that he's having these dreams where he's on the plane with his dad on these bombing runs, and he's seeing them, and this does well to sort of put at rest some inner demons that Alistair's struggling with as his father's gone. It also kind of shows us what Mary was going through, having this, wartime romance while James is off, or not James, Gordon's off, fighting in the war. And so I liked the story. It was good, but it was at this point in the book that I kind of felt like, now, maybe I don't want this book just to be a history of the Lethbridge-Stewarts. Maybe I want a little more
some excitement.
And I think having the dream element to it still gives you a little bit of that attachment. It certainly helps now that you've kind of pulled the weavability of the great intelligence into the discussion here, Sean. But this one, again, I could have just left or took. It was a fine read. It was interesting, but it didn't feel like it added a lot other than what I mentioned about Alistair struggling with his father being gone so soon after his brother, or being away so soon after his brother had died, and then Mary dealing with this situation in her own way by having a romance with the postman. So I thought that was it was an interesting addition to this book, and I'm glad this one's in there. It's not one that I think should have been cut, but it was one that I could kind of give or take. And I kind of felt like if the rest of the book kind of goes this route, I may not be enjoying this as much as I had anticipated.
I continued to appreciate the fact that there was less alien influence in this story, but had the aftermath of alien influence. So it kind of skirted that edge since we knew what happened to James.
Right.
And seeing the emotional fallout on a young kid, it made me enjoy the story. That's the most I could take out of the story. Really,
it helps that it connects a few of it connects loosely to Forgotten Son,
right?
In a lot of the backstory that we learned in that.
Yeah.
So,
and
this just adds
have learned
to that.
since then.
Exactly.
In that time
this
frame,
just sort of adds to that.
It's not a time frame in Alistair's life that I've really glommed onto or cared too much about, so it's kind of one of those, oh, okay, that was a thing, I'm moving on now.
Well, I think because we've gone back to it so many times in short stories, it's not that I don't want to know more about it, it's just we feel like we've been there.
I feel like I know enough, a few more times, I guess is the thing. I feel like I know what happened, and I have a feeling how Alistair would react to it. So it's kind of like okay, I'm kind of done with that time frame. I'd almost rather see later when he decides to go into service instead of his original path that he wanted to take. Seeing that story would almost interest me a little bit more than this story of him dealing with the fallout.
I also suspect that Andy and the guys at Candy Jar Books, the editorial staff there, I really kind of feel like they step aside for some of the novels in the past that have alluded to Alistair's service. Right. They don't touch on that too much because they certainly could if they wanted to. They can do what they want. But I think they certainly and I may be speaking out of turn here, but I think they certainly stay away from some of the things that's already been established. And I think, without having read any of it, but just perusing some of the articles, there's not stories set in those times, but stories that have been written allude to those times. And so I think it's a safe zone to talk about his childhood.
Oh yeah,
and so I think that's why
liberties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And not to mention, because it connects so much with what happened in Forgotten Son, I think that they feel like that's a very good area to mold and kind of play with. So I think that's why
I don't blame them at all.
I think that's why we haven't seen a lot of information of what happened with going into the service and that kind of stuff from about 16 or 17 up until present. Present day in the series exactly
70s or 80s.
70s or 80s. Well, even earlier than that, I think, because 60s would have been the first book picks up after Web of Fear. So.
62.
Yeah, somewhere around there. No, later than that, 68. Yeah.
I don't know why I had a lot of trouble with this one initially. For some reason, the way it was broken up, the way it was written, something I felt like I was lost through the first couple of bits. It wasn't gelling for me at all. And it wasn't until the postman showed up at the house and Alistair ran off to meet Raymond that all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay. Until those things happened, it almost felt to me like these were completely random individual moments, and I wasn't sure they were happening at all in the same time frame, even though it comes up at the beginning and says this story is set in 1945. I don't know why that was, but that's just the impression that...
Well, I think because the dreams
I think so.
The dreams start you off because he's finished the book, he's gone to bed the first time. That's when he has at least we get the recounting of the dream the first time. And then it seems to me that does it happen one more time? No, because then he sees Raymond the next day, and then he has another dream, and then he sees Raymond again, and that's when the incident happens at the top of the cliff.
Yeah. But once I kind of stabilized, I thought, this is actually a pretty good little yarn, and I appreciated the look back home because not only did it tie into Forgotten Son, obviously, but we also got a little bit of A Man from Yesterday. So it kind of was the bridging of the bookends, if you will. So I thought that was kind of cool.
All right, now Inheritance. Matthew Lethbridge-Stewart finds more than he bargained for when he claims the ancestral home in Scotland. This is when the book starts picking back up for me. I enjoyed the story quite a bit. I like the fact that it changes the format, it changes perspective, it's now a journal entry from Matthew, right?
This is definitely written first person as
I don't
opposed
remember how
to.
it was framed. Well, it wasn't written first person.
Wasn't this one first person? Wasn't this the one?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, from the memoirs of the Honorable Matthew.
Yeah, but it's not written in first person.
Isn't it?
I drew up outside and took stock of the house itself. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't remember it being written first person. Okay.
So I liked all those aspects, and I thought we were, especially since it was set in the 70s, I thought, okay, here's now the alien influence is still going to start cropping up, and it doesn't. I like the fact that while it is Matthew and it is, it's because throughout most of this, I struggle to keep track of how each of these characters is actually connected to Lethbridge-Stewart, other than having the same name.
Matthew would be his uncle,
right? Okay, so even though it's his uncle and not a main line directly to him, I thought there was going to be a nice alien influence, and then I was pleasantly surprised that there wasn't. That it was what would be Alistair's cousin, influencing things and trying to steal out this property, and I enjoyed all of that aspect of it. I liked the mystery and the intrigue of it all.
It certainly lent itself to the idea that we were in for a haunted mansion.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a very private haunting feel.
Yes, I thought the
exact
same thing.
With the setting. But no, I agree with you. I thought it was a breath of fresh air, kind of in a way. It was a palate cleanser that it just kind of like, oh, we're not in for any of that. It's just there's just some dirty family politics at work here. And again, kind of like the Percy story, it kind of showed that not all of the branches of the Lethbridge-Stewart tree bear good fruit.
Right. Well, and it's totally believable that the husband that what's her face marries,
Violet,
wants to try to claim the land and sell it and make money off of it because he sees an opportunity. And in that time frame, it's not like most women would put up much of a fight with her husband over no, that's my family land, we're not going to do that. It depends on the situation. But
I liked the Countess Scarlioli.
That was a name drop.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wow. Nice name drop there.
Yeah.
She would have been the one purchasing the picture.
I very briefly got really super excited, like maybe there was going to be more to that, and then I went, no, of course there's no, that's just a...
I agree with you what you guys said about this, and I sort of feel the same. This is another one that I wasn't really intrigued by this one, beyond the fact that finding out that it was a money grab or a property grab. It was one of those stories where this is a nice, interesting aside from what's going on here, and what I felt was building up to be some sort of big mystery ends up being a little more mundane than I expected it to be. Some of that was a bit of a letdown when we just find out that it's the dirty politics within the and not even so much that. I mean, it is. It's the son-in-law, but it's also the butler. He wasn't a butler, but the manor guy, and then the other guy is also in on it too. His accountant is in on it too, because they realize that the property,
to keep it afloat.
Exactly, the property's insoluble at certain points. So yeah, it was again, it was one of those, like, I was like, okay. It certainly would have been, if it hadn't been for this and the one with Percy, I probably would have given the whole book which we can talk about at the end too, but I gave it 4 stars. I wanted to give it 3.5, but you can't but I didn't feel like
3.5 was what mine
I
were
didn't
gonna be
feel
too.
like it deserved a 3-star because there were some really good stories in it. So I went with 4, but that's what slid it back to that half point, was those 2 stories just really didn't do it for me that much. But I'm getting ahead of myself because we're not even finished with the book.
Well, let's move on to acceptance and then understanding, or of the future.
As my copy claims.
Connell Lethbridge-Stewart. No, I still said that wrong.
Connell
Lethbridge.
could be saying it wrong, but I think it's Connell.
Connell Wilson knows his grandfather, Sir Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart, hasn't long left, and so wants to give him the best possible Christmas gift he can. This is my favorite of the stories in the book.
Wait. Did you skip one again?
You did skip one.
No.
Yeah, you skipped the one with Kate.
Of the Future?
That's this one. Kate's in this one. Oh, no,
she's
Kate's not this.
Well, she is. She's on the
right.
telephone with Connell at the end.
This list doesn't include that one.
Oh, okay.
So Of the Future is... It's one about Kate.
I'm going to go
synopsis.
So I'm going to go out
Kate
on a limb.
meets a dude.
And
Jonathan,
say this is Glenn's favorite of the bunch because this is the closest related to Downtime.
Interestingly enough, this is not my favorite, but this was probably close second. But it's certainly just a selfish reason because it's connected. This is another nugget that's connected to Downtime directly. This is Kate meeting Jonathan. She's presumably pregnant with Gordy, and so it came in there. It really kind of exactly. It kind of cements also why her relationship with her father is so rocky at the beginning of Downtime. Mm-hmm. It's not just because of the things that her mother planted in her head, although they certainly were a factor in that. It wasn't just that. It's the fact that she did try to connect on a different level with her father and ended up in the middle of a situation that she doesn't know she's necessarily in one of these, quote unquote spy situations that is happening with her father. But it really kind of does a really neat job of cementing that opening to, well, not opening, but the fact that in Downtime she's got such an abrasive relationship with him and does not want him to see his grandson. And so that actually made Downtime work even better. And he didn't need to make Downtime work any better for me, but it did. It elevated it a bit more. So I thought that was a really, really neat perspective on that. And just to give a little bit of more backstory to Kate, I think is a neat,
I think a
neat touch.
I think it kind of helped flesh out Kate a little bit more. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, a little bit kind of connected the dots between New Who and Downtime Who. Or Downtime Kate. For some reason, I could imagine...
I think just because she was studying science.
Yeah. I
think it's ultimately the only connection.
That links me a little bit more to the Kate we see in Downtime as opposed to New Who Kate.
I'll buy that. This is Andy doing what Andy does best. Andy taking those desperate threads that are not really meant to be tied together and going, oh, no, I can tie those together. Making it work because... It did. It really, when we watched Downtime, it was such a, well, yeah, okay, I guess. I can kind of make that work. And now
Shut up, it worked really well.
and now it feels like, no, it totally works.
By the way, I just got my DVD copy of Downtime in the mail. I didn't realize until now it's region free.
Oh, I thought you knew that.
No, I had no idea until now. I was waiting to see if they'd release one in the U.S. Finally got on Amazon and thought, oh, what do I have to do to... Wait a minute, region free? What? You probably told me that one time, but I had forgotten.
And how many times have you watched it?
No, I haven't yet. I want it fresh in my mind because I'm going to be doing a thing next month with it. So I want to get it fresh in my mind when I do it. So,
although this does, I don't know. I do have a question, and maybe it's just my failings at not knowing how the Official Secrets Act works. That she's there, and he says, "I can't tell you." That's kind of the excuse. Anytime we don't want to tell somebody something, well, I can't tell you.
Right.
But then later in life, he tells everybody everything. I mean, he's got the grandkids on his knees. Well, one time I was being chased by a Slovene, and blah, blah, blah. And
well, you just get the impression. You say everybody. It's Connell and Lucy, really, who he tells.
It's mainly Connell and Lucy.
And ultimately, I think it's because it's at the end of his life, and he realized what consequence could there certainly
is that what
possibly
it is? Just the brigadier
and
kind of like, eh.
And I want to finally pass these stories on to the two people that are I love the most. So because obviously Albert's not. Something has happened that's
obviously
we still didn't get much out of that
until the incident in the first novel. Lucy just assumes they're fun stories that he makes up.
Well, Connell does even to a point, alluding to it in the next story we're going to talk about as well.
And so that they just assume they're made up stories, not real actual stories.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I liked this a lot. I thought this was good, and again, just it's unlocking another piece of the puzzle, and I really enjoy that. And I think this, of all the stories in here, really does a nice job of that. So.
Oh yeah. All right, now acceptance and then understanding, which I had already read the synopsis for.
Right. Now, this is the one with Connell, and
Yes.
he's struggling. Well, he wants that was the best part of this story is the fact that this is a kid that wants to take on his grandfather's name. He wants to pass on the legacy. He wants to continue the line, and even though he's got cousins that have the name and will continue the line, he wants to do this for his grandfather. And I love this, and I love the interchange of it, and the fact that we're getting he and Dean's relationship early on. And then, they're 2 months in. They're always talking about kids and marriage and stuff like this. And he wants to go show his grandfather what he's done, what he's continuing the name. And Dean says, no, I don't want to go with. He asks Dean to go with. He said, no, I shouldn't go with him because and they're kind of on that, skirting on that. He's an older generation. We don't necessarily want to, bridge that, we're a couple kind of thing now. For it to turn into that's what it is, him, sharing a part of his life with his grandfather.
Yeah.
That was just, I loved that. I was literally welling up with tears reading this, just all the way through it. It was just so.
And then the such bittersweet ending where he gets the license. And Alistair had already passed away.
But I think it certainly illustrates that. I think the more important thing was that he told his grandfather about his sexuality, about his lifestyle.
Absolutely.
I think that ultimately was more important than continuing the line. And it is a bit bittersweet that he wasn't able to share that with him. But I think that was a nice capstone on the fact that, there sometimes it's alluded to. Sometimes you have your secrets, and this is a secret that stayed with him. Unfortunately, even though he was going to tell him, it was a neat little turn.
Sometimes you choose to keep your secrets, and other times you don't get that choice.
Exactly, and I thought that was a neat statement on it. I thought it was a neat statement on the character of the Brigadier, how somebody of that advanced age that did not grow up in an era like we are now. In order to be, he admitted that it's hard for his mind to understand it, but he didn't need to understand it because it's something that it's the choice for the person, the individual, and that's what's most important. And I think it's just this spoke volumes of the character of Lethbridge-Stewart. I think that it was really well delivered. It was so good. This one was my favorite.
Yeah, mine too. For everything you said, plus the little quasi cameo in the middle of it.
So, yeah, that was the other cool thing is that now we know how the Doctor learned, how Lethbridge. Well, we know the events that led up to Lethbridge-Stewart learning about the face change or the sex change of the Doctor, because we had that little small thing that
one page.
Yeah, that little one page. Oh. That's all right. Little dog spit isn't going to hurt me. The little one page that Andy had written when the announcement was made. And for me, that would have been enough.
Oh, yeah.
But then to include a little more, kind of embellish that a little bit more in this story, I thought it was cool. And I got the impression, although it's not completely stated, that she materialized right there in Connell's room, right? Delivered the message personally to Connell's to take to Lethbridge-Stewart, right?
Yeah, that's the impression I got, too.
If
not in the room, outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he heard the wheezing, he went out to see. So it's not like he saw her materialize and take off, but but that was cool. That was really cool.
That was really cool.
And the doctors, although we knew the Brigadier's acceptance of that too was very.
Yeah.
This was my second favorite story of the bunch, for all those reasons that you said. It was beautifully written. It was a touching story. It was a little bittersweet. I too welled up a little bit. Just so well done.
Well, let's move on to the last one, the Arcade of Doom.
This is the best one ever!
While visiting the local arcade, Lucy and Hobo stumble upon a monster from the classic era of Doctor Who.
Wow, that synopsis just goes boom to the punch. Because to be quite honest,
I didn't know what it was until it showed
even
up.
when it talked about the spike sticking out.
I
Of the
wondered
top,
as soon as it said the spike. I thought,
didn't even get
"Is that
that.
Quark?"
It wasn't until the thing
Collapsed
started
Quark.
coming to life. I went, "It's a collapsed Quark! Oh my gosh!"
I'm going to go out on a limb and say this was Keith's second favorite story.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, definitely. This book ended on 2 very high notes.
This book ended on 3 very high notes for me, because this would have been if I had to put the Kate Stewart in the second place, this was the close, nearly tied for second story in this that I enjoyed as well. And this one I didn't think I would. I thought the Lucy Wilson mystery that we read, the first one, was a good story. It was a fun story, but I haven't fallen in love with Lucy and Hobo yet. I haven't, and part of that's because we haven't read enough.
We've only read one book.
We've read one book. And it was good. It was an enjoyable book. But also we're stepping aside now into a different series that's just, laterally connected to the Lethbridge-Stewart
It's like
series.
Sarah Jane Adventures to Doctor Who.
So delving into this one was like, okay, here's a Lucy Wilson story. Let's see what happens here. And then he was like, wow, it's got a Quark. It's got an arcade. It's got my childhood. I mean, basically it's now, but they're describing an arcade as, the perfect arcade. And I agreed with Hobo on every one of those points. And the fact that he's playing a classic Pac-Man game and that he reveres the Pac-Man game so much, I thought, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, not to mention that she ducks behind a version of Gauntlet.
Oh, no. The best part.
Blue Elf needs food badly. Oh, there's a claw machine and a coin game.
Oh, yeah. It hits all of the arcade high notes.
And fruit machines, which
Fruit machines.
he's never liked.
That
fruit
was the
machines.
best part. Is, as soon as he said,
those,
and there were fruit
those
machines.
are slot machines.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they don't require any skill. He was never any good at them. And I didn't go with slot machines. I went with, those are like those coin machines that Glenn and Holly play.
Yeah, no,
that's what he's talking about.
Their fruit machines are actually like one-armed bandits here. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep. No, but and I think, if I remember right, I could be confusing it with something else. There's a reference to those coin push machines too, but they're called something different too. And I read it and thought, I think that's what those are. But then the fruit machines are actually like slot machines, what we call here.
Well, they got blown up, whatever.
Everything
they're called, and I was like,
everything in that arcade got blown up except for the Pac-Man arcade.
Right. Well, I love the fact that the Quark wasn't actually evil. It had been reprogrammed.
Yes, and so I'm excited to find out where that comes from, because that was cool.
So it subverted my expectations of, this Quark is going on a rampage. How are they going to stop it? Oh, they don't have to, because it's actually, it didn't mean to destroy everything, but it was in its last mode and needed new orders. And I love that fact.
The cool thing about it, too, is the fact that we set it up and we're making this big deal about Lucy having a cold, to the point where we're changing the words so that we understand that some of the words she's saying that as you do with a cold. And I kept thinking, why are you driving home the point that she's got a cold? And it's not until she sneezes on this thing and it registers her DNA that it realizes that she is a descendant and qualified to give the order. I thought, oh my gosh, that was so cool, because I was annoyed with the fact that she had a cold. Now I'm like glad she had a cold. It totally worked for the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was, I mean, you can make me a believer out of Quarks, for Pete's sake. It must be good.
True story. If it's a Quark, it's a good story. What do you want?
No, it was fun to have a classic villain in it as well.
A great way to end the book.
Yeah, but it didn't end the book because...
Oh, that's true, because the Soothsayer returns for a wrap-up.
Which I thought was cool. In fact, it bookends the story really well. And it put me in a mind to, if the end of this would have been paced with the first part of this, it would have been a much better story, because the first one works well as a setup, but you don't get any there's no action. There's no conclusion to it. There's nothing there's nothing really to glom on to other than, oh, this is a quaint little setup to how these books work, and it does. It works well for what it is. Then you get to the end, and the resolution of it, and her steadfastness, and the fact that William finally breaks in and tries to come to the rescue. Obviously, he did need to protect. What was the quits? Whatever the thing's name.
Gale.
Yeah. I did need to protect Gale from you, and I thought that was a cool callback. But had those been placed together, it would have been a better story. But then when I got to the end and read this, I went, oh no, this is the perfect bookend, because I was thinking, oh, why couldn't this have been exciting earlier? Oh, because, especially since they start off with her seeing Lucy and Lethbridge-Stewart in her vision that she's seeing. Because we didn't get Lucy in the beginning. We just got Lethbridge-Stewart, the vision of him and Lineage of why is this man important? And that's obviously what allows her to sort of break the concentration or the grip that it has on her. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, wow, this was a great way to book in these stories, to come back to this and show the resilience of William and Mary, and why it was important for them to get together. And yes, the whole line has always, in some way, been defenders of the of the world, of the earth. So I thought that it was a neat capstone for this whole series, or for this whole anthology of stories.
I would agree. And I think overall, as far as the book goes, it wasn't a book I was excited to read just because when I want to read a Lethbridge-Stewart story, I want it to be about Alistair. I want it to be about the brig. And I just could not find myself to get excited about starting the book. But as I read it, I had my ups and downs. But overall, I enjoyed it and thought they were all very well written.
Yeah.
It's a fairly easy read, too.
Oh, yeah, it was quick.
They're short enough that, you can break it up and you don't feel like you're bogged down on any one.
Yeah, it was literally only 120-some pages. So.
Yeah.
So, when Mary gives Gale what for, and she says, I am Mary Lethbridge. My son will be the firstborn Lethbridge-Stewart, a lineage that will protect this realm for generations to come, and no star-born trickster is going to prevent that.
That's what made me wonder if there was that's what it was. That's what made me wonder if it was alluding to the other thing we have to be cognizant of is there is a wealth of Doctor Who material, and some of these names have been said before in books outside the series, in the actual main range of books. And so, as I was saying earlier, Andy's been really good about leaving legacy exist. They could have totally, Star Wars to this and came in and said, okay, all that's past doesn't count anymore, and all this. And another testament to that fact is the fact that Andy has looped in downtime in with this, which I think was a cautious thing starting out with this, because downtime certainly did sort of contradict some things, especially the novelization, which I think still does, and I think we still have to set that one aside. But downtime sort of contradicted some things that Andy wanted to do with it. And as Sean alluded to, Andy starts to see a thread and goes, oh, wait a minute, I can connect this. And yet he's done that. And so I think one of the things that we have to realize, that coming to this as Lethbridge-Stewart people and not having read the wealth of books, I wonder if there are nods and mentions back. In fact, there was one thing I was going to chide Sean about, which was when Lethbridge-Stewart talks about meeting the Sixth Doctor. And last time that he saw him, it was in a patchwork coat that somebody would have been proud of. And I immediately, after I finished that, I had to message Andy and say, okay, for anybody that hadn't listened to Spectre Lanyon Moore, did you just canonize Dimensions in Time? And he came back and said, no. He said, because he met him in Business Unusual, which is one of the main range, or not main range, but one of the books. in the book series. And so then I was like, oh darn, because I was good. I said, I it was one of those things I was kind of chide Sean with, and he said, no, actually though, some writers have loosely connect dimensions time. So I can't wait till we get to those so that I can pick on you that's all part of canon now. So
my first thought was, no. Oh wait, Lanyon Moore. I'm safe.
I instantly thought Lanyon Moore. Dimensions in Time never even crossed my mind.
I did too think Lanyon's Moore, and then I went, oh wait a minute though, if you hadn't listened to any of the Big Finish,
or if he'd said next to a helicopter, then
right, yeah.
So anyway, we're going to eventually run into some more skirmishes with Dimensions in Time as canon. But I just thought I brought that up. But
I'm wondering if this is meant to be the trickster from Sarah Jane.
Maybe, but they don't describe him that way because
really
he's certainly characterized, and I get the impression he's dead now. So whatever this was, it was the end of it. I mean, obviously you can figure out ways.
It's sci-fi. Anything comes back.
I mean, everything comes back. Davros has come back 5 or 6 times now. So
we've seen him die
from certain death. Yes.
We've seen the Master get burned to death. He's back.
Exactly.
Right.
But. No, it's just I really appreciate what they're doing over there at Candy Jar, and Andy especially, how they've just made everything be very inclusive, even if it's uncomfortable things or things that didn't necessarily go their way. One example would be Archibald and Andy stepping in and saying, "Well, I'm going to make this work, and I'll patch it up." And I think that's a testament to him knowing what came before and wanting to make everything work in an entire broad world. It's not all going to work perfect, and sometimes you fiddle things and you ignore little things. But I think overall he's done a really good job of keeping the universe basically canonized, in my opinion. And I think he's made it work really well. And I'm still so excited for Downtime 2. So anyway. I wish I could have given it about 3.5 because a few of the stories slid it back for me. But overall, it's a good book. It's a good set, and it ends with a bang. The last 3 stories were certainly my favorite of the bunch. So
3.5 is a good score for it. I went on my Goodreads. It's
better than average, right? It's better than average score.
Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah, average would be 2.5, right?
Yeah, 2.5 out of 5.
Yeah. In my Goodreads, I went 3 just because some of the other earlier ones I just did not enjoy as much.
Very good. Well, should we move on to the comics now?
Let's. The Doctor regenerates into her most thrilling incarnation yet, played by Jodie Whittaker, and traveling alongside 3 brand new companions. Experience mind-blowing challenges and dynamic adventures through time and space, right alongside the Doctor and her friends. A new series for a new era on the TARDIS from an astounding creative team. That's pretty much it. That's the synopsis that they gave me.
So you guys go ahead and have fun talking about these. Yes, I did read them. This is not an excuse to get out of it, but I refuse to review these because Sean once again stepped me into a story that I'm about to review that isn't done yet.
Who knows how long it's going to go, though?
Sean was against scheduling these.
Oh, it wasn't Glenn that wanted to schedule.
Yeah,
no.
Because we were told we need to really get some Titan comics on there since the 13th Doctor's out. Let's review the first 2.
No, I think I wanted to get 0, and then I thought we could do 1 a week along with it, but now I'm going to do 2. And then I'm going to have to wait another 2.5 months before we continue this story.
I'm probably not talking about it. We just end the show.
I am not talking about these stories. You guys, you wax lyrical about the stories. You let me know what you think. I can't tell you what I think about them until I'm done with the full storyline. So
I'm pretty sure I've been on record as saying I prefer to do them in story chunk, and that Glenn didn't want to do 5 comics at once because he felt like it was just too much.
I don't think you're on record with that.
I'm
We always
pretty-
talk about that stuff between
I'm
the
pretty sure
behind
that's
the
on.
scenes.
I'll have to go back and listen. I'm pretty sure.
No, I like to do them in the nice little 3-story arcs that they tend to do.
Whatever the arc length is, really.
Yeah, see, that's the kicker about this is they're going to finish this little small interlude storyline. Because obviously there's a full season arc. They do that. We know they do that. There's always a theme that runs through them. But they always seem to do kind of the smaller arc stories. Mini arcs in 3s. And we inevitably either do 2 or we do 5, and we're always right in the middle of one that we cut off. And I'm like, this is no more.
It's been a couple years since we've done it that way.
Yeah.
So the last whole year at least.
No, there was one last year that we did a volume, or we did a volume, and then plus 2 like the following week.
That's because of Dimensions.
And we dumped in the middle of one.
Yeah.
It's because they broke it up weird.
No, I agree. That wasn't your fault.
Well,
They
that
did
one was
break
not
that
my
one up. I'm just saying, this is the second time in like 6 months this has happened. So, what'd you guys think of this story? What'd you guys think of the?
I can't wait to see how it ends.
How do you want to do this? I mean, that's just it. We could review the first book and then we review the second book. To me, they're kind of the part of the whole book, especially since there's a big cliffhanger at the end of each one of them.
Well, instead of talking about the individual issues, let's save that for when we do get to an actual.
I'm being a little facetious here. I think we could talk.
But I think
characters
we can talk about the comic.
And,
we can talk about the
absolutely.
fact that
gorgeous artwork.
Jodie Hauser, who's the writer, really has nailed the
She
voice
has
of the
captured.
characters.
Yeah, she has captured.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder too. How much for leading up to this did she get? Was she able to see episodes before these?
They
before
obviously
she
had to
wrote
have
these?
something because they got the TARDIS perfect.
They got the TARDIS perfect. The artwork's
characterization,
gorgeous. The character. That's just it. And as Sean said, the voice is there. And in fact, I thought that it wasn't going to be, because the first time that Grant refers to the Doctor, he says, "Hey, Doctor," and I thought, oh, I'm so used to him saying, "Hey, Doc," that I thought, oh, you really missed a beat doing that. And then later he refers to her as Doc, and I thought, well, surely, I mean, in a get her attention situation, he's going to say Doctor when he does the first time, and then the second 2 allusions to her mention of her name, he calls her Doc, and I thought, okay, that's a small, minute little thing that was very important to me to capture Grant in this story and get his voice. I think Ryan's mannerisms are very much captured in this, which is really hard to do in a comic book. But his mannerisms, and I think Yaz's taking charge and authoritarianism, or in an authoritarian role, is certainly exhibited here. It's maybe not as noticeable as the little nuances with Grant and Brian,
prominent,
but giving her that element, I think, really worked, and her portrayal in the comic is very much in line with the way Yaz is in the series, and even little, and I thought it got a little heavy-handed, but even the Doctor's little where she'll say something and let's just say, well, maybe not exactly, but yes, but certainly this way. She does that. She does it in the series. She does it a couple times in the book, and I was flipping through here trying to find one of those examples, but I couldn't find it. But she does that where she'll say something assuredly, and then she'll back off a little bit and say something a little less assuredly, and then she'll kind of correct it, you know. And she does that in here, so she certainly got that too. But it has happened kind of close together, where I felt like maybe the second was a little forced. But overall,
I enjoyed these 2 issues so much that each time when I got to the end, I was disappointed there wasn't more.
Yeah,
I just want to keep reading. I want to know what happens.
I blew through these. I read these both issues in less than 20 minutes. I mean, I just blew through them because they were so
What's
good.
also amazing is they don't only have the characterizations down, they have the feel of the season down.
I would agree.
The pacing of the season and the plot points of the season, that they're taking more time to develop the characters.
Yep, I would agree.
And letting the plot kind of take its time is fantastic. I can't say enough praises about the issues. I enjoyed every single second of every single frame.
Well, and in some ways, better than the live action show is doing. When the Doctor says, "Well, you're police,
is it because you don't see
you're an
pants
authority
very
figure." They look like the type who like authority. So, oh my God, we've given Yaz something to do that's within her wheelhouse.
Oh yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my, yeah, let's do some of that. So,
And you can tell it so early on in their run that she's so off kilter and not sure how to go about it, but then she finds her feet so well, proving that Yaz is such a good character.
Here's an example of what I was talking about and how the doctor has these little things when Yaz asks, "Are we safe out in the open like this?" And the doctor says, "Of course, maybe." Probably not. Those kind of things. And those are things that Jodie Tate brings to the character when she does it. And the way she does it in the series is so good that when I read her do it, when I read the doctor do those in the book, I hear it completely. Not even in the voice of Jodie Whittaker, but in the tempo and the pacing that she does them with. And I thought to do that on paper is really, really well done.
Yeah. Agreed.
Graham had several of those moments too, where he would say, "What's with this guy? You said he was dangerous. He looks like just an ordinary bloke.
Right?
Ordinary blokes can't be dangerous."
Yep.
Fair point.
Fair point.
And it
that
sounds
was
like a Graham line
very
that
much
he would back off of that.
Right.
So the the writing, I feel like, is very, very much on point. The artwork is bright. It is vibrant.
It's phenomenal.
Really well done. The characters look like the characters.
I think that that would be one of the challenges that's needed is the fact that you're going to have to do, at least for the first few comics, you're going to have to do some really good artwork. And the reason being is because visually on television it's been done so well that you want to, if you're going to match that tone and feel of what's happening on TV, you really kind of have to go the extra mile with the artwork as well. And I think that I think it'd be forgiving if the art became a little more simplified later in the season. I think it'd be okay in the run. I don't think they need to keep up this, because there's probably a lot of effort in the many colors that they're using and in the fine details in the lines that they're using. So sometimes you're okay if an artist maybe comes along and doesn't quite get there. I'm a little more forgiving, I think, often than you guys are. But I think to start out the series, they had the right artists doing this because you really needed to capture that feel. I'm really intrigued about these scientists that were working to invent, what do they call them, temporal science, and they invent these crude vortex manipulators and pretty much end up in the wrong place. So I'm really interested to see what this guy's I'm really interested to see where that story is going. And I also like the intertwining of their backstory of how we start out seeing them stealing something and the awkwardness of the fact that the alarms are going off and there's like a video camera and she's like, those haven't been invented yet. And he says, well, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe I did 1999 instead of 1899. And I thought that's a funny little, setup. But then as these characters go along, the tone changes because you find out that this isn't, a couple of bumbling bandits. These are guys that are being forced to steal stuff, and they're scientists. And then later to have the big finale of these two with the guy that they've pulled out of the time loop, pull the gun on them. Obviously, he's up to something now as well. And so I'm really intrigued by the two characters that they've introduced.
There's even the red herring at the beginning that they're introduced kind of in silhouette, and we get the maybe I'm in the wrong year joke, and then one of the other, he calls him Doctor.
Right.
Yeah. So we're kind of led to believe that, maybe this is it, but it's not. As far as the ending where he's, we're in the TARDIS, he pulls a gun on him and I need your ship. It's like, well, I guess when we get to issue 3, we will find out if this is an instance of an actual genuine plot continuance, or if this is a convenient capture and escape, because if the state of grace gets brought up, then it's going to be a very temporal grace. It'll be a very easy out for them. I suspect that this is a 3-part mini arc, and I suspect that that's going to be used because we're at the 3rd act. We don't have a lot of time to deal with the fact that they've got a gun pulled on them, basically holding them hostage. I think we're going to fix that real quick and go, well, you can't fire that in her anyway because of temporal grace. So I like what they're doing with it. I think it's going well,
and I obviously was just kidding about not reviewing these. I think it's a good start to the series. It's got me intrigued, and I'm ready to keep going with these comics.
It's gonna be
and look how easy it would be to do these one a month as they came out.
I think it's gonna be a comic that even if we don't review it when I get it, I'm probably gonna read it.
Yeah, I kind of
much.
thought the same thing when I get the third issue. I'll probably go ahead and read it and then reread it whenever we review it.
Yeah.
6
I reread
months
issue
down the
1 because
line.
we were gonna do it a while ago and didn't. So
I remember you said that.
and I still reread it. I enjoyed it just as much the
How
second time.
frustrated would you be when, lo and behold, I read it and now I got to wait a month before the next one comes out.
See, but then I can.
I grew up reading comics, Sean. That's how comics are supposed to be. Not read 4 or 5
Not your
and then
binge
wait.
society.
Yeah, not wait 6 months to read the
Mainline.
next 4.
I like mainline.
That's like watching Doctor Who one year and having to wait an entire year and a half to watch the next season.
Even though they've been coming out as they air.
Yeah. I'm still angry.
All right, Sean, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
All right. I'm going to go ahead and give you a breakdown because we've decided to revamp a few things, and I will get a corrected or new schedule posted for you.
Wait, you've changed things?
I've changed a few
Why
things.
was I not notified of this?
That's not allowed.
Next week.
You were. He just simply says, you were.
You were. Next week, we're doing a Lost in Time special on the Celestial Toy Maker. So we will be tackling the Recon episode and the novelization of that. We will be doing a pair of Big Finish stories for our special Christmas episode, which are not on the schedule, but will be. And that is O Tannenbaum and The Little Drummer Boy.
In reverse order.
Well, yeah.
Whatever order you want to listen to.
And I can't recall off the top of my head which Short Trips season those are from. But
O Tannenbaum is 7.3. Little Drummer Boy was a short trip that was a special release in 24 with one of the main range stories, or 2 of the main range stories. You could get it with either one of the 2 main range stories if you were a subscriber. So
I believe it's included in the Rarities box.
Rarities, that's what it is. Short Trip Rarities, that's the one.
So that will actually be treated as a kind of a side trip. That's a special bonus episode. And then we will, of course, be doing the new New Year's special for our New Year's episode. And then originally the schedule has some 8th Doctor Big Finish audios to start off the new year. And we're going to kick over and instead do the 3rd batch down for the year, which will be some 7th Doctor stuff. We're going to listen to Big Finish number 109, The Death Collectors and Spider Shadow, as well as the recent Titan Comics miniseries, Operation Volcano. And the reason for that change will be revealed
very soon.
So we're basically just going to flip those 2 shows to accommodate this special announcement that we can't make yet.
But we will soon.
Very soon.
Anything else we need to talk about this week, fellas? Before we close this show? It's gotten rather long.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening. We can say it together. It's okay.
And thanks for
It's okay. Ready? We'll do it together.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Thanks for listening.
Oh, why do I bother?
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.